All right, let's go grab a deck. Boom, boom, boom. The number one use of a stop order is to stop losses. The key to investment success is to let your flowers bloom, but more important, pulling your weeds. And a stop order is when we agree it's not a flower, it's a weed, and we need to pull it from the portfolio. There are other uses of stop orders, but that's the number one, and that's why we refer to them as stop loss orders. Stop the loss. The other uses of stop orders, besides stopping losses, are to protect profits, to establish stock positions. Those are the other two. So whenever there's three of a thing, the thing you can look forward to is the accept format on the exam. All the following are uses of stop orders, except. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
All right, so I just told you, test question, there are three uses of stop orders. This is again suitability. When do you use these?
Mm-hmm.
Use these type of orders to stop a loss, protect
Mm-hmm.
profit, or establish a stock position. Now, if you're a technical practitioner, you would use a buy stop above the resistance line to go long, and a sell stop if it goes below the support line to go short. Now, because technical trading, we don't believe in buying a stock that's stuck within a trading range. It's dead money. We only want to buy the stock when it breaks out. It's going up, it's going down. Now, once we pull the trigger and make the stop order is a suspended order. It's a contingent order. It may or may not ever become a live order. Once we pull the order, the only two types of orders we have are market orders or limit orders. So I say, Safa, Evan, if it trades at or through, what do you want me to turn it into? A live market order or a live limit order? It may never be triggered or elected. It's a suspended order. It's a contingent order. It may never ever become a live order. And here it says if it's not triggered, there's no trade. Two separate events. Customers get hung up on this all the time. Like if my client calls me, hey, Dean, I saw that I'm watching CNBC and I'm watching the tape and I saw that it traded at or through my stop. That's my trade. I go, no, 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 no. Two separate events. That's what turned your suspended order into a live order. Here's an example of a test question. He said the number one use of a stop order is to stop a loss. So the customer says, Dean, let's sell short 100 shares at 33. I say, Evan, if all you do is sell short 100 shares at 33, you have unlimited loss potential. Because you're betting the stock is going to go down, and if you're wrong, the stock goes up. There's finite supply, potential, infinite demand. Well, you get on the wrong side of that, you're going to get crunched. I say you ought to consider some risk mitigation. Why don't we agree that if it trades at or through 35, we're going to go home? So how does this read as a test question? The way this reads as a test question is your customer sells short 100 shares at 33 and places a buy stop at 35. The following trades then occur. We're going to go through a sequence of trades and have to decide whether or not this ever becomes a live order. It's very testable to know where we place orders in relationship to the current market price. And whether you want a buy stop that turns into a market order or a buy stop that turns into a limit order, buy stops are always placed above the current market price, the current market value. Okay, then the test question says the following trades then occur. So we said as a test question, your customer sells short 100 shares at 33, places a buy stop at 35. The following trades then occur. Please note we followed the convention. We placed our buy stop above the current market price. We're watching trades go by. It happened at 34.75? No. It doesn't become a live order unless it trades at or through the trigger price. Now, it may never ever become a live order. So nothing happens here. 34.75. Boom. Let me get a different color here. So nothing happens. There we go. Nothing happens there. Anything happen at 34.90? No. It never becomes a live order unless it trades at or through 35. Now, on a number line, there's no way to go from 35 to 34.99. Oh, nothing happens. We got to go at, boom, right? It got to go up. Okay, so now the test question is, does this become a live order? If that next trade, where the question mark is, my slide's a little out of whack here, but if that next trade is 35 or 35.01, then we're going to have a live order. So my slide. Want to keep? No. I'm just moving this over. So let's put a trade there. Let's go back, slideshow, boom. So I say it's 35.01. Is it to become a live order? Test question, yes. 35, does it become a live order? Yes. 35.01, there's no way to go to 35.01 from 34.90 on a number line without trading through 35. So now it's a live order. It's a live market order. It doesn't matter what the next trade is. That's the customer's trade. So if I put a 36 in there or a 28, it does not matter. Because remember, market order is immediate execution at the best available price. The number one use of these orders is to stop losses. Let's try another one. Test phraseology. Customer buys 100 shares at 33 and places a sell stop at 30. The following trades then occur. We said the number one use of a stop order is to stop losses. Right? Please note, very testable. We always place the sell stop, whether you want a sell stop that turns into a market order or a sell stop that turns into a limit order. Sell stops are always placed below the current market value, the current market price. Please note, we're following the convention. We bought the stock at 33 and we placed our sell stop at 30. We're willing to lose approximately $300. The following trades then occur. The following trades then occur. Anything happen at 34, 75? Anything happen at 30.75? No. We need a trade at or through 30. Anything happen at 30.25? No. Anything happen at 30.01? No. Now in the test, there won't be a little arrow that says triggered or elected there. You have to know that it traded at or through. There's no way on a number line to go from 30.01 to 29.99 without going through 30. This is now live market order. That's why there's a question mark because we don't know what that trade is. My crystal ball is broke. Whatever that trade is, it's your trade. Now, if you want, if that's something that concerns you, this would be foolish. But you could say, Dean, instead of turning it into a market order if it trades at or through, you told me if this, in this example, you said, Dean, if this, if it trades at or through 30, then that. Then I want immediate execution, best available price, two separate events. You've added a qualifier or a contingency to it. But once the qualifier contingency has been met, it's a market order. But if you want, you could pull the trigger and say, Dean, I'd like to turn it into a limit order. And I said, ooh, that's very foolish. He said, well, why is that foolish? I said, because now you're adding a second contingency or qualifier. Now you're telling me if this, it trades at or through, then you want your price or better. I can't tell you how many times over my career I've had to tell somebody, Evan, people don't have to do business with you at your price or better. You know, you may not get out of the stock. Right? So what you're trying to decide is what's more important to you, execution or price. Right? You know, I'm living off grid now, and the people here don't understand market orders and limit orders. You know, I told the guy, listen, I don't care what the price is, I want it. And then he goes, well, no, that's not how it works. I got to give you a quote. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what the quote is. I want immediate execution at the best available price. Limit order, I say, hey, well, you know what? Your price isn't all that good. I think if you want to do it for this price or better, I'll do some business with you. I was at my cigar lounge the other day in Prescott. I told you I'm off grid, so when I go on grid, it's kind of nice to be back in civilization. And I'm drinking a nice glass of wine and smoking a nice cigar. And the guy who has the cigar owns the cigar lounge. I said, hey, Steve, you got any recommendations for me? He goes, Dean, I have a cigar for you, but it's a little pricey. I said, well, good news for me, Steve. I'm blessed enough that I can give you a market order. Just go pull the thing and bring it over here. He goes, well, I haven't told you what the price is. And I go, listen, I've traveled the world and smoked a lot of cigars, and I'm in Prescott, Arizona. It can't be, it's not going to be $400 or some crazy thing, right? Anyways, trigger editors. So now we got to be a little more careful. So now it says on the test, and this is where it's not the customer's job, by the way, to know it's a limit order. That's our job, right? So here's an example of a test question. An investor says, Dean, I'd like to buy the stock if it trades at or through 25. If this, then I want to buy it, but for no more than 26. I go, oh my goodness, are you picky or what? The more contingency or qualifiers you add to the order, the less likely it is that that order is going to get executed. I used to have a doctor client drove me nuts. He'd say, Dean, let's put in a buy limit all or none at the close. He'd give like me a half a dozen contingencies. And then he'd say, well, did it go off? I go, what do you think, doctor? I mean, you gave me like a half a dozen different qualifiers or contingencies. The only order test question that has no contingency, no qualifiers is a market order. Market order, immediate execution, best available price. We at the cigar lounge telling stories, and you know, I was telling the story about going to the Bulls game with a guy, NBA championship. He was from Chicago, and so I said, "Oh man, what a run you guys had in Chicago in the '90s, man! The Bulls were in the championship every year, playing for a ring." And I told the CEO of the company, I said, "Hey, I'm going to the Bulls NBA championship game tonight," and his name is Joe, and he said, "No, you're not. The stadium is sold out." I said, well, Joe, I would think you're a little more sophisticated than that. The stadium is never sold out. At some price, there is a ticket. And I don't care what the price is. How often am I going to see Michael Jordan do his thing? He said, well, Dean, I'll go to the game tonight for 2,000 or less. I said, well, Joe, that's a limit order. You may or may not be at the Bulls game this evening because you're telling me the price is more important than the what? Execution. Me, I'm using a market order. So there's no doubt I'm going to be there because whatever the price is, I'm just going to suck it up. I'm going to pay it. All right, so let's go through the trades again. We got to be careful again. So on the test, they're going to show us a sequence of trades, and they're asking what happened. So do you have thing here? No. By the way, please note, we had to place the buy stop, as I said, above the current market price. Whether you want a buy stop that turns into a market order or a buy stop that turns into a limit order, it's got to be placed above the current market price. And please note, we did indeed follow that convention. 24.90? Nope. 24.80? Nope. Ding, 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 ding. Now, in the test, there's not going to be an arrow there that tells you that that's when it became a live limit order. That's something you've got to bring to the table, right? You have to be able to tell me that this is no longer a contingent order. The qualifier or contingency has been met. The qualifier or contingency has been met. This is now a limit order. And so now we got to be a little more careful when looking at this price. Because as a buyer, it's your price or less. So if that next price is $25.99, you will accept it. If that next price is $26.01, you will not accept it, right? Because you said you only want to buy it if you can do so at your price or less. So stop orders, when triggered or elected, they may never become triggered or elected, but when triggered or elected, either become market orders or limit orders, two separate events. Let's try a sell stop limit. Now, remember, we said sell stop limits. There's foolish because now you're saying you got two contingency or qualifiers. And every time you add another qualifier to an order, the less likely it is to be executed, right? I feel very blessed that I told you in the cigar lounge that I used a market order all afternoon. And I said to Steve, the guy who owns the place, hey, can I just run a tab? And instead of paying you each time I go come get a cigar or get a drink or whatever, can I just, run a tab? And he said, man, you don't seem to be very concerned about, what the cigars cost or what the whiskey costs or the wine costs. I go, well, hey, when do I come on grid? I mean, now I'm off grid, I can spend even more money when I'm in the city because, no way to spend it here. Right. So, anyways, here we go again, right? We followed the convention. We have a sell stop, but now we want a limit order. So you got to be a little more careful on these because there's two contingencies. So again, we go through the sequence of trades they show us. Anything up at 25.90? No. We're looking for a trade at or through the trigger price. Pull the trigger. So we don't pull the trigger at 25.90. We don't pull the trigger at 25.75. We don't pull the trigger at 25.25. Customer says, oh, there's my trade at 25. I go, no, that's not your trade at 25. That's what turns your suspended order into a live limit order, two separate events. That is not your trade. That's the trade out or through that pulled the trigger, elected the order. It's now a live limit order. And now we got to be careful because on the test, we may or may not say that next trade is acceptable. If it was just a straight stop, it doesn't matter what that trade is. Doesn't matter the price. Now it does. As a seller, you want your price or more. So if that next trade is 24.01, that would be acceptable. 24.02, 24.05, acceptable. 24, acceptable. 23.99, not acceptable. So if that was 23.99, then we'd look at the next trade. Is the next trade going to be acceptable? Next trade's another 23.99, not acceptable. 23.98, not acceptable. 24.01, ding, 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 acceptable. So very much a test question. It's very testable to where we place orders in relationship to the current market price. And so we have a really beautiful memory aid about where we place orders. We've been reviewing stop orders. A little coaching call here on stop orders. And I said, whether you want a buy stop that turns into a market order or a buy stop that turns into a limit order, buy stops are placed above the current market price. Whether you want a sell stop that turns into a market order or a sell stop that turns into a limit order, it's placed below the market. So slobs over bis. So that stands for sell limits and buy stops are above the current market price. Buy limits and sell stops are above the current market price. When I was a baby broker decades ago, that's a term of endearment. It's not a derogatory term. When I was a baby broker, I was cold calling this country club. I cold called this guy like 5 times, and I said, listen, what I'd like to do with your permission is open an account and buy 1,000 shares at 40 for you. I said, if I'm right, over the next 18 months, I think this could be an $80 stock. And if I'm right, you're going to double your money to 80,000. I said, I could just as easily be wrong. And if I'm wrong, the stock could easily be a $20 stock. And God knows I don't want you to lose $20,000. So what I'd like to do with your permission is open the new account and buy 1,000 shares at 40, place a sell stop at 37. So that way we lose approximately $3,000 if I'm wrong. Approximately, because if it gets triggered, we don't know what the next trade is. He started laughing. He goes, son, I was a young man then. I know what a stop order. He's the one that gave me that line. He goes, part of successful investing, young man, is letting your flowers bloom and your weeds pulling your weeds. And I like a stop order. It's an automatic weed puller. He said, honey, there's a broker on the phone. Says it's going to cost about $3,000 to get to know him. What do you think? I hear her in the background. He goes, Dean, most people who cold call me like you and try and get me to open an account and buy some stock always tell me about what if they're right. They never tell me what's going to happen if they're wrong. So I appreciate you told me what's going to happen if you're wrong. He said the other thing they don't do is when it goes up, they call me every day seeking referrals, who else like they can make wealthy. And when it goes down, I don't hear from them until it's like 20. And then they get me, instead of to call it quits, they want me to average into the dust. They want me to buy another 1,000 shares at 20 to bring our average cost down to 30. He says, go ahead and open the account and put that sell stop. If it gets triggered, close the account, send me a check. The relationship is over. It was one of my best days ever. I opened like 6 accounts out of that country club. They started calling the front desk, his friends in the club, and saying, hey, we want to talk to that $3,000 broker. Well, yeah, that's me. I'm the $3,000 broker. Right? They all put in these stop orders. Now we got lucky and the stock went up. So I called them back and I said, hey, listen, we want to protect our profit now. So I'd like to cancel the sell stop at 37. And now the stock is 60. Let's move it up to 58. No sense going backwards. We said there's three uses: stop losses, protect profits, establish a stock position. My cousin recently put his retirement plan online and he's making his wife nervous because, she calls me and says, Dean, he's playing video arcade games with our retirement money. Could you give him a call? I said, hey, John, you're making your wife nervous. What's up? He said, Dean, there's this $40 stock that is now a $10 stock. I said, John, there's probably a reason for that. He said, I'm thinking about buying 1,000 shares in my retirement plan. And if it goes back to 40, I'm going to make 30 grand. I said, well, John, that's a pretty speculative kind of an investment. If I were you, I'd put it in your personal account because if you're wrong, at least you could deduct up to $3,000. The two major impediments to investment success are taxation and inflation. In your retirement plan, you've already beat taxation. So if you can just beat inflation, you're getting ahead. He said, well, Dean, it's none of your damn business, but I don't have the money in my personal account. I said, well, that's not a good reason to be buying, trading your retirement plan, but oh well. I said, John, while we've been on the phone, I've actually punched up a chart on the stock. And right now the stock seems to be stuck at 10. I mean, why tie up $10,000 in a stock that isn't moving? I mean, why get on board the train when it's stuck in the station? What I would suggest, John, is putting a buy stop at 12. Tell your Schwab broker that if the stock trades at or through 12, then you want to get on board the train. And until that happens, if it ever does happen, it may never happen, but if it does, you still got your 10 grand earning you interest. If the order gets triggered or elected and you get execution, let's say it's bad, gets triggered at 12, execution at 13, stock goes to 40, you make 27 grand instead of 30, but in the meantime, you still got your $10,000. He goes, well, can I do that? I said, yeah. I said, get your mouse there. Just put your mouse buy stop at 12. Please note, we're placing the buy stop above the current market price. Right? 10, we're putting at 12. Anyways, the following trades then occurred. The stock went from 10, 9, 8, 6, 3, 2, bankrupt. The stock left the station going the wrong way. Good news, he never got on board the train, right? Because it didn't break through this resistance line, right? You don't get on that train. Well, he called me, goes, man, Dean, that thing was so cool. Because you ever think about being a broker? Something like, John, what do you think I did with 30 years of my life? I mean, P.S. He needs to be, get a broker. I think I spend some more time with your Schwab broker, John. Right. Okay. The other thing I think you wanted to talk about in today's call is mutual funds.
Actually, can I potentially switch that to more the taxation side?
Yeah, taxation is kind of a kind of unwieldy thing to talk about. But yeah, do you have a particular type of taxation you want to talk about, or?
Um, I don't know, I guess mutual fund distributions, or I mean, when you said the thing about deducting the $3,000
Yeah. So
earlier, that other side for
the biggest
those
thing for
that
you, my friend, is just to remember you're not at risk. So you just don't want to put yourself at risk by anything that would do that. So let's just get a whiteboard. Yeah, we can talk about it.
more so just like the retirement accounts,
Sure,
what's
sure.
tax deductible, what isn't, that kind of thing.
Hold on. Let me just get rid of the stop share. Let's get rid of that. Put that away. Boom. Let's get rid of that. Boom. Okay, so the way I'll tell you what's testable, what's not. But the way I think about it, that's not certainly testable the way Dean thinks about things. But the way I think of it is there's three baskets on my tax return of money. Those three baskets are Dean working for money, what I call paycheck income, what the IRS calls earned income, right? Then I have my portfolio, what the IRS calls unearned income. That's my money working for me. And then we have our passive income. That's our partnerships. So you said something about retirement plans, right? So, if I make a $90,000 in paycheck income, maybe I fund an IRA, for example. And let's say I can deduct 6,500 or whatever the case may be. So if it's 6,500, I get to now reduce my paycheck income to 83,500, and that 6,500 is going into a IRA cash, and I'm going to make investments. And that's important to know that that money in that retirement plan has not had taxes pay on it. Maybe if I net all my profits and losses in my portfolio, realized profits and losses, it's been a bad year. And when I net all that, I've got a $20,000 loss in my portfolio. So now I can reduce this further. And I can reduce this now to $80,000. And do I lose access to the 17, right? It was 20, now it's 17. I've used 3 of it. I carry the rest forward. We're not really concerned on the test about this. What we're concerned about primarily on the test is the portfolio part, right? Your investments, your mutual funds, your stocks, your bonds, your whatever. We're not really concerned about this either on the test. This is your partnerships, your participation programs. Maybe 2 questions. I mean, not a big deal. All test prep vendors go way over the partnerships, way over. Right. So now, as it relates to what we do for a living, Evan, this is, I think, a big turn on. Is when I get to call my client and say, Evan, when we started our financial journey together, the goal was to have enough money working for you that you don't have to work for your money. And we have arrived at that destination. So tomorrow, Evan, if you want, instead of calling in sick, you can call in rich. You can tell your employer, I'm not going to be at work today. And they say, Evan, why aren't you coming to work? You say, I got an eye problem. And they say, what's wrong with your eye? You say, I can't see coming to work. Well, my broker tells me I'm rich. Or, hey, if you choose to, go to work. Good place to be, right? You want to go to work. One thing that I love about our industry, by the way, particularly old farts like me, if we're still in the office, it means we've made a lot of money and we still like coming to work. Yeah, that's kind of a good place to be. Pete Seltzer, I talked at the cigar lounge the other day. We were joking, and I said, so I forget how it came up, but I said, well, listen, guys, I don't know what to tell you. It's money can't buy happiness, but it can certainly rent it. And I've been poor and unhappy, and I've been rich and unhappy. And given the alternative, rich and unhappy is better than poor and unhappy. So it is what it is. All right. So we have all kinds of different securities. Right. So what we want to do is now the investment side. Remember, this is huge on the desk because the securities is the biggest part of what we do for a living, right? Is making investments. Right. You asked about mutual funds, for example. If we didn't have subchapter M or the conduit or pipeline theory of investments, taxation, and we'll just start without subchapter M. What kind of sucks in this regard is if I buy Bank of America, for example. Bank of America has an 84-cent annual dividend. And so Bank of America makes money, pays taxes, and then pays me that dividend of 84 cents a year, and then I pay taxes. That money's been taxed twice. That's called double taxation. If we didn't have Die 90 subchapter M, or the conduit or pipeline theory, what would happen is the mutual fund owns Bank of America stock. Bank of America pays taxes, pays a dividend in the mutual fund that pays taxes on the dividend. Then they pay me, and then I pay a tax. Oh my God, that would be triple taxation. So the IRS has been kind enough to say that as long as a mutual fund passes through 90% of their net investment income, they will wait and get that from the individual mutual fund shareholders. So a good way to remember that is Die 90. This applies both, Evan, to mutual funds and REITs. Mutual funds and REITs. So the dividends on the stocks in the Fidelity Magellan portfolio are American funds. These are, mutual funds. I feel sorry, a lot of people who start in our business go to work for a fund distributor like Franklin Templeton Fund Distributors or American Fund Distributors, or then they get a six. Oh man, you're gonna need a seven eventually. And then they all got to circle back and they got to get sevens and then they got to go get 24s. And, oh my goodness, been 20 years since they tested. But here we are at the fund level, right? And the fund collects the dividend. And as long as they pass through 90%, and REITs are very similar, they'll wait and get it from the shareholders. Most mutual funds do substantially better than this because it would behoove them not to keep any of it because how are they going to articulate to me as a mutual fund shareholder why they're not distributing 99.9? Because whatever they keep, they're going to pay taxes. And remember, that's an impediment to their success. To have any justification for not distributing that money, they'd have to say, Dean, we plan on making more than the taxes we're going to pay on that. I go, really? I think that's a little hubris on your part. Now, we also have in our portfolio capital gains, realized capital gains. Major point, realized capital gains. Watching your stocks go up is not taxable. This drives my progressive friends nuts, but Larry Ellison is never going to pay a capital gains tax on his Oracle stock. He's had 2 billion shares for the last 40 years, and he said, told everyone, I'm not selling any shares. And what he does instead is borrow against his 2 billion shares. He likes to borrow against the shares because he doesn't want to have to pay the capital gains tax. So the easiest way not to pay it is not to transact. Now, one of the disadvantages of a mutual fund is you give up tax control of your investments. You don't decide when to sell. So, Fidelity still owns 10% of Google that they bought at the IPO price, now Alphabet. And if I had bought Alphabet at the IPO price, I might look at my portfolio and go, oof, I'd like to sell, but man, if I sell, I'm going to have a huge capital gain. So my investment mind kind of says sell, but my tax mind says, ugh. Again, in my example of mutual fund, Devin, that's not my choice. That's the portfolio manager of Fidelity to decide that. And if he decides to sell that Alphabet, there's going to be a huge capital gains distribution to those shareholders. And it doesn't matter how long you've had that Fidelity fund. If you bought it yesterday, it's still long term because the capital gain taxation is based on the holding period of that security by the mutual fund, not you, the mutual fund shareholder. Right? So there's an embedded capital gain distribution there if they ever sell. Now, mutual funds know what we're talking about, and they some of them pride themselves on what they call tax efficiency. So, we try not to, distribute as much as we can have. Now, let's say that you tell the mutual fund, very testable, that you don't need the money. A lot of mutual funds offer what are called DRIP programs. Very testable. That stands for Dividend Reinvestment Program. And this is where, Evan, you say, as a young man, I don't need the dividends into capital gains. Just take those and reinvest them for me. Right? I mean, I had another session today, and it's kind of weird. You would never have thought this when I started this journey, the side hustle, 4 or 5 years ago with the YouTube channel. It would I'd be inspired by the young men and women I see coming into our industry. Being the curmudgeon old guy, I thought when I started, oh man, I'm gonna be disappointed with the next generation coming through. And no, hey, we got some quality men and women coming through. I always joke, reinforcements are on the way. The young lady I was just with this morning, she's going to work at Goldman Sachs, and that's a great career, and she's gonna have some mentors there. And it could be worse. There could be worse places to be working. Anyways, onward with this discussion. So you say, Dean, reinvest the money. I say, Evan, the IRS assumes you could have had the money. And that's the same as getting it. And that's called constructive receipt. Constructive receipt means you could have had a choice. They say, hey, do you want the money? And you tell the mutual fund, no, I don't need it. Just buy me more stuff. The IRS says you owe taxes on it. That's testable to know whether you read. Now, we're assuming this isn't your 401k. We're talking about this mutual fund is in your personal account. So it is important to know on the test that reinvestments in a DRIP program, the reinvestments of the dividends and capital gains back into the fund is going to be taxable to that mutual fund shareholder, right? And then we have individual securities. Number reason you would buy a mutual fund or a REIT for that matter. Number one reason is professional management. A professional management of a portfolio of securities or professional management of a portfolio of real estate, a diversification, ease of ownership. All those are reasons why you would buy a mutual fund as a securities or a REIT. But you are held accountable for other securities that would be found within the mutual fund, right? So you have three issuers of securities you're held accountable for: corporate securities, municipal securities, and government securities. Those are the three issuers of securities. And then your point about taxation. Corporate securities are pretty straightforward. They're fully taxable, right? So whether it's a corporate stock or bond or whatever it happens to be, you know, uh, Evan, I get so tired of people bitching to me about California because I lived there many years and I love the state and love San Francisco. But I tell my friends, well, do like Dean, move. If you don't like it, join me in Nevada or come to Texas or
I don't like it, Dean. I don't like it. I'm in California. I'm in Sacramento. I don't like it.
oh,
I
well,
want.
we lose a lot of people like Elon. He's gone to Texas, right? Because he sold like $9 billion worth of Tesla stock, and he was a resident of California. And California, the top tax bracket is like 13%. And
Oh
I
my
think for a year he paid like $1.3 billion, right, in taxes to the state of California. And again, I don't feel sorry for him. Oh, yeah. But he didn't want to sell. He had to sell to pay taxes, whatever. He's still the richest guy in the world. But no, it's not a coincidence that he went to Texas. There's no state income tax. But he paid federal income tax. He paid state income tax. You're in Sacramento, Safa, but they've talked about a city income tax on the city of San Francisco. There's not
God.
many cities that have city income taxes, but New York City certainly does. Philadelphia certainly does. So you could end up being in a situation with a corporate security in which you're paying taxes to three people: the city, the state, and the U.S. government. I kind of
Mm.
joke, taxes are the price you pay for civilization. The more civilization you want, the more tax you got to pay. I was teasing, right? But my brother he's always thinks, he goes, man, I can't believe how low our property taxes are. I go, well, Chris, we're off grid. There's nothing to pay for infrastructure wise. I mean, we don't have police, we don't have fire, we don't have a hospital, So hey, no wonder our property is. Before I moved off grid, I told mom, I said, now you realize in Las Vegas we call 911 in 2 minutes. You're going to have the fire department here or an ambulance, and now we call, they're going to have to call a helicopter to come get you. So you get
Mhm.
what you pay for, I guess is what I'm saying. Um, it could be now if we move on to municipal securities.
Mm.
Municipal securities are always going to be federally tax exempt. Always. Always. Whether it's state and local depends on where you live and what kind of bond you buy. So, maybe I'm talking to one of those Silicon Valley guys and he's had a liquidity event. And I say, why don't you give me $100 million to build a muni bond portfolio for you? We'll buy you some state of California, some counties and cities. We'll buy you some rural, diversify you geographically. And he said, well, Dean, the way you've explained this to me, if I move to New York can and will tax me on interest I receive on California debt. I go, absolutely. I said, California could, but chooses not to give you an incentive to invest in California or political subdivisions of California. But that reciprocity does not apply state to state. The federal would like to tax you, but can't. And if you move to New York, you don't paying federal tax, but you're going to pay New York. He said, well, Dean, is there any bonds, and no matter where I live in the state of the union, any state, it would be exempt at all levels? I say, yes, territories of the United States government. The U.S. government could tax you on Puerto Rican debt, but chooses not to give you an incentive to invest in Puerto Rico. California, New York would like to, but can't. I joke, if anybody wants to Puerto Rico to become a state, it's the other states, right? Because then they could, tax them. They don't get into the U.S. Virgin Islanders or U.S. Micronesia or, the one they like on the test is Puerto Rico, right? Now, federal securities, U.S. securities, the U.S. Treasury can and does tax you on that. So if you have a Treasury bond, the interest that you're receiving will be federally taxable, but it will not be taxable by the state or the city. The whole concept is called reciprocity. The states don't bother the government doesn't bother states. And so it's not really a tax thing. It's just this thing about called reciprocity. Anyway, so that would be how that's going to be taxed, right? So those are the three issuers. That's kind of how they're taxed. Now, in our portfolio over here, a lot of times in partnerships, we have what are called passive activity losses. And passive activity losses from partnerships sometimes aren't real because it could be a function of depreciation. And I said that you could actually take 3,000 over here to reduce your income. Looks like I did the math wrong. That should be 80,500 there, but right, 3,000 what I can take. Nothing in your partnership part of your portfolio can be used anywhere else. So, I had a doctor one time, and one of my go-to moves was, hey, doctor, why don't you meet me up in Napa and we'll do a due diligence tour and tasting of the winery. And then we can decide whether or not you want to make an asset allocation. And, we're on the way to the car. And he said, Dean, I appreciate what I've learned today. He says, but I'm going to take a pass. It's really embarrassing, but I have so many partnerships, so many direct participation programs, so many of these tax shelters. I said, well, doctor, what you're telling me is you've got all kinds of passive activity losses. He says, yeah, I got lots of them. I said, well, as you know, doctor, they're just stuck there doing nothing for you. You can't use those anywhere else. I've got some good news for you. This winery is a pig. It's a passive income generator. And so I think actually now you need to make a bigger asset allocation to soak up all those passive activity losses. And based on what you've told me here, I think you need $300,000 of the winery. You want to match your pigs with your pals, right? Or I might call and say, hey, Evan, we've got all these passive income coming into the portfolio from, our partnership distributions, passive income. And what I'm thinking we might want to do, Evan, is take a flyer, be a little aggressive. I'm not saying we should seek losses. Not what I'm saying. We're not going to let the tax tail wag the investment dog. That's not what I'm saying. But why don't we go for an oil and gas exploratory wildcat program? At least if we don't find oil, we can do what with those passive activity losses? Use them to suck up the passive income, right? So you want to match your pig with your pals as it relates to taxation on partnerships, right? And then remember, partnerships, the accounting is a little different. All test prep vendors get way overboard on partnerships. It's mainly about not taxation, but about the role of an LP and a GP, the various types of partnerships we have available, not so much the taxation, right? So that's an overview of taxation. And then within these categories, right, in the corporate things, you have stocks, you have bonds, munis, you have GOs and revenues. The taxes aren't dependent on the type of the security. It's about whether you held them 12 months or not, you know. But sometimes I'll get like CPAs or tax attorneys taking their exams and, oh, I'm a CPA, I'm a tax attorney. I go, well, great, maybe 4 or 5 points. I joke on the taxation part, Evan, we just got to make sure we're competent enough that the guy's accountant doesn't say you need a new broker, right? I mean, we got to, be able to kind of have a general understanding of the tax consequences. I had a guy who had a six, story I told you earlier, right? He had a six. He was coming back for a seven, and we were talking about if you go from fund A to fund B, it's a taxable event, right? So you're in a growth fund and then you switch, assuming again it's not in your 401k, right? And he said, Dean, I learned that the hard way. Got some orphaned accounts when I got my six. And this was an account that I inherited, and it had been in this growth fund for like 20 years. And I said, why don't we get out of the growth fund and decide where we're going to redeploy the assets? And they were really mad when they had a $40,000 capital gains tax. And I said, I would be mad at you too. I don't expect you to be an accountant, but I do expect you to understand that that's a taxable event, right? And if it were me, that would be cause for me to be looking for a new broker, right? So it's not like you can unwind that. Now, I always joke it's a fine line between Evan. I'm not a tax guy. I'm an investment guy. Do I have a general understanding of the tax implications of your investments as an impediment to your success? I do. But you should check with your tax person, like my cousin, right? I said, your impediment to success is taxation, and in your retirement plan, that's going to be, a pure investment arena for you. So that's big picture stuff, not so much nitty-gritty stuff. I do have a lecture called Death and Taxes, Just Taxes. In other words, it's not really about death, it's about taxes, right? And you can watch that. And it's hard to organize a tax kind of a discussion because it's dependent on all the variables we've discussed, like the type of security, how long you've had it, you know. So I think the best way to proceed is just what you've been doing so well, is practice drilling and rehearsing, right? Just you get the question, you deal with it, you remediate it, and then you move on. That's how I would be suggesting you move forward, particularly in the limited time I know that you have left between now and test time.
Okay, so would you recommend that I watch that video now to kind of reinforce the knowledge, or maybe save that for down the
Never
line,
tell
kicking
anybody
things
not to
in?
watch one of my videos unless it's
Well, yeah.
like 1 a.m. The night before, then you shouldn't be watching my videos. But
I
yeah,
just mean, do you think that stuff is more applicable to the SIE or maybe a further
oh,
exam?
I told you, I think it wouldn't hurt you for the SIE. The,
Okay.
the SIE is really not as in depth on taxes either, right? It's mainly on
Yeah.
the SIE, mainly recognition, 33 questions on securities. I always joke, I'm thinking about changing like a lecture title instead of securities industry essential. Essential to the industry are securities.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what the industry is about. So
Yeah.
the stuff that some people get hung up sometimes on the SIE, like back office stuff, I'm like, it's not a big deal. So I mean, that it's hard. You want to be over prepared. And as I know, your next leg of your journey is a seven. I know that, and so I'm always a fan of overlaying the SIE because
Okay.
right, you want to take that testing victory, get a little pep in your step, and go in that solid. Same if even if we're going back to retake the SIE, same thing. We don't want to just barely get through it the second time or whatever time it is. We want to nail it and lay that base. Whether, by the way, I think if you're going for a six, I think if you do a good job in the SIE, I really believe you could test out of a six.
Okay.
I'm not an employer anymore, but if I were an employer and that was our next leg, I would tell people you're taking your six 2 weeks from your victory on your SIE. You don't
You think
need
that would be enough time for that
first
if you're really,
or six,
yeah.
not for a seven, but yeah. So
Not, yeah, not the seven.
I was got more
That
stuff.
they give me a month for.
All right. Anything else now? But when we get these done, I put up another one. So these are the free thing we said. So I don't know if have one up before you test, Evan, but I know you're not at risk, so I'm not worried about it. But I put them
Okay.
up as we do them. So today or tomorrow, I'll put up another one. I'll give
Okay. Perfect.
one a week. Right. Keep in touch and let me know. And like I say, good session. You feel better about stop orders?
Yeah, thank you, Dean.
Good. Good. Okay. Keep in touch
Thank
and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
thank you so much.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.